get you a chair and help me cut this up, dude.
It smells bad.
It's because it's old food. The worms think it's delicious. It's been a week since we got our European night crawlers. It's time to feed them again. 2 days after I put them in, I gave them about 2 cups of food scraps, and they have pretty well went through all of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut up some of these food scraps here. This is some old apples that we kind of forgot about. We have some bananas, some old frozen vegetables that are past their prime, and an old cucumber. I'm gonna chop all this up and put it in this bucket. And we're gonna go ahead and feed all 3 bins, because the other 2 haven't been fed in a while either. Let's get all these food scraps. Really, dude? What do you need help doing? As soon as I start flipping talking. Can't get nothing done around this house. 20 minutes trying to cut up an apple. Okay. Let's get all these food scraps chopped up. We'll get them in this container and we'll go in there and feed the worms. All you have to do is just cut it up into like roughly 1-inch pieces. I have tried to puree it. Okay. All you have to do is just cut it up into 1-inch chunks, roughly, and put it in the bin like it is, and it'll break down just fine. I have pureed it before in a food processor like some people do, but I have noticed that once you put it in the bed and the bedding soaks all the moisture out of it, that it's just basically a big thick mat that they can't actually crawl through. So if you just have it in chunks like this, there's actually airspace that they can go through and crawl in and get the stuff that they want. And it seems to break down just as fast. With these apples, you can pick the seeds out if you want to. Some people say don't put them in there because they do have cyanide in them, but as long as you don't really cut them up a lot or turn them into a powder, it's really not going to hurt the worms. They might sprout in the bin, but all you have to do is just pull the little seedlings out whenever they do sprout. So it's nothing that's really going to harm your worms. So I don't worry about trying to take them out. So we ended up with this container full, which is a 1-gallon mixing container, and that looks like probably another quart of the frozen fruits that we had. So we're going to be giving each bin probably about 1.5 quarts roughly of food scraps, and we will see how long it takes them to go through that. That's usually about what I would feed the red wigglers in a bin this size, like the regular Rubbermaid tote. You probably wouldn't want to give them any more than that. Might even do a little bit less, but we're going to go ahead and see what happens with this much food. So we're in here in the utility room. I went ahead and took all the lids off the worm bins. These 2 are the red wiggler bins, and this is the European nightcrawler bin. You can see I gave them all a little bit of dry worm food to kind of tie them over until I got to feed them this evening. And the European nightcrawlers have ate every bit of it today. So they really like the dry worm food. I would almost say they like that better than the food scraps, which would be a good thing if you're just trying to raise them for bait worms, because you could put them in the compost, feed them dry worm food, and not have to give them any food scraps if you didn't want to. The red wigglers, they are completely out of food. You can see there is a couple that has been crawling up the sides. There's a few up here, and in this one you can see. So they are trying to escape because they have no food in there. They can eat the compost, but they would prefer to eat the food scraps, the red wigglers would. It looks to me like the European nightcrawlers are really liking the compost and really liking the dry worm food. So this might be a better setup, especially if you're trying to do bait worms, because you won't have to give them no food scraps. So let's dig through these. I'm going to dig through the European nightcrawler bed first and see where the food was. I put it in this end on all 3 beds the last time I fed them. But I put it in this end, so we're going to dig here and see if there's anything left. And then we will feed them again on this side. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them in there. Looks like there is no, well, there's one little bitty section of food left. Can't even tell what it was. But there is no more food left in this corner. So they have ate that 2 cups of food. And these are some big fat worms. Those will make some good bait worms. Probably not too many in this end. Yeah, I'm not finding any in this end. The moisture's right. You can squeeze it and get just a couple of drops out of it. I probably just killed a worm. But that's how you want the bedding to be. You don't want it to be super wet. You don't want it to be super dry. You want to be able to just squeeze a fistful and a few drops drop out. The red worms, I'm starting to wonder if they ever actually eat that dry food, unless they've just got a lot of food scraps left, but I've not fed these in a while. No, they have no food scraps left. It looks like there's one pile there of food scraps that they've been gnawing on. That's all that's left in there. So they definitely need fed again. Nothing in that end. Let's check this bin. This bin seems to stay a little wetter. I don't know if it's where it's a smaller container and it doesn't have as much airspace up in here, but it seems to stay wetter, and the lid usually has moisture on it. And I treat both of these the same. So I'm thinking it has something to do with the airspace that's in this bin. See if they've got any food left. Not really. Decent amount of worms. Not really any food left though. So they definitely need fed. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to set this camera up and we'll go ahead and put some of these food scraps in. To feed them, I have the food scraps that we just cut up. I have a container full of shredded cardboard, a little bit of paper in there. I will put that down before I put the food scraps down to suck up any moisture, and the worms really like cardboard. It's a good way to recycle that. And I have the dry worm food that I always make. I have a video on that, which I'm going to have to make some more soon, so I might go ahead and make another video on how I make it. Let's go ahead and set this camera up and we'll get these fed real quick. So all you need to do to feed them is dig a trench down. I like to leave a couple of inches of compost all the way around it. And then I dig it deep enough so that I can cover it with a couple of inches of compost. And I just feed half of the bin at a time. Where's some big worms? Then I'll put a couple handfuls of this in the bottom. Which is going to be about everything I got. Okay. And we'll try to just evenly put the same amount of apples, the same amount of bananas, just roughly per bed. The apples will take a lot longer to break down than this banana and cucumber will, because they're a firmer fruit, and these are just starting to be bad. They're just past their prime. They're not actually mushy and nasty yet. If you wanted to speed that up, you could actually freeze those and then thaw them back out, and they would be mushier a whole lot faster if you want to just freeze them overnight. One thing I forgot to mention is coffee grounds. I just keep this on top of the refrigerator, and I dump the coffee out of the filter every morning before I make new coffee. We're just going to evenly distribute this. That's probably roughly a quart of coffee grounds. Used coffee grounds. Just to make that clear.
Like your big fit shirt.
Thank you. And then I put about a quarter cup of this per bed. Looks like I've got a little less, but I'm just going to use the rest of this, and then I'll have to make some more. And I'm going to add a little extra to the Nightcrawler bed because they seem to really like it. Then cover everything up with about 2 inches of the compost bedding. That way it doesn't smell bad. That's all you have to do. We'll come back and check on these every few days, make sure the moisture is right. If it's too damp in here, we'll put dry bedding. If it's too dry, we'll put water. And about a week from now, we'll check and see if we need to feed again. Thanks for watching.